The Great Gate Hyperjump is an inconsistent mess, but if you are fortunate enough to actually get it and not die to a death plane, then you're rewarded with the task of blindly traveling to the portal from out of bounds. That Hyperjump is some random bullshit that Bullbear got a couple years ago, which has allegedly been recreated once or twice. It has massive potential for the Lost City and Sunset Vista if it can be made consistent. This video is in chronological order of the levels, so I am going to be showing off the spare Hyperjumps in Temple before the ones in Jaws. You can pretty much do these anywhere provided there is a platform underneath Crash. Dave found these in November of 2023, but he only actually alluded to what he found. Austin Oblivion, upon reading that, hopped into Temple Ruins off a whim, got the Hyperjump himself as well, so I guess they're co-founders. Flaming Nokia Hyperjump, patent pending, is something that Tizen got a couple months ago that we've all decided to collectively remove from our brains. The original Sunset Hyperjump was discovered a couple weeks after release, but was only made consistent in about 2021. Obviously, you don't typically want to get a Hyperjump out of Koala Kong when you do this trick, but you can. I'm not even exactly sure how. I spent like an hour trying to replicate it, and I couldn't. I'm gonna credit this one to Cameron just because he found the original trick. Coming up, we have Heavy Machinery Hyperjump, which was found by Dave at the same time as he found the Spear Hyperjumps. In March of 2023, Dave, shocker, found this Hyperjump that can take you all the way to the end of the level in Generator Room. This wonderful Hyperjump was found at the start of 2022 by Batake and Yuki. Based on world record history, it looks like Bird Hyperjump was found about 5 months after release. The story goes that Austin and Cameron were looking for new Hyperjumps, and that's how Bird Hyperjump and one which I'll show soon called Useless Hyperjump was found. Not much is known about these upcoming Hyperjumps except that Elevator Hyperjump is AIDS, so I'm going to take this time to describe what we know about how to trigger Hyperjumps. Austin theorized the power of a Hyperjump scales linearly based on how long the jump button is held for after triggering the Hyperjump for up to 20 frames. So 1 frame gives minimum height and 20 frames gives maximum height, while 21 plus frames will not trigger a Hyperjump. Empirical evidence validates this theory, but it is not fully understood whether Hyperjumps that are triggered in more unique ways, such as the Great Gate and Gen Room, follow this theory, so there may be more to it that we are yet to understand. Anyways, that was the Time Trial Hyperjump by Wingnox, which was found when he was actually looking for backup Hyperjumps for any percent in mid-2022. This is the Useless Hyperjump I mentioned earlier. These next two are ones that I found while messing about at the end of 2022. This one, which I've called Sniper Jump, probably has use in console completion categories since that bird snipes the 2 boxes. And I have no idea why you'd want to do this one. Coming up, we have Jaws of Darkness, which just has the same spear Hyperjumps that we saw in Temple Ruins. The first one is optimal, but the second one is okay if you prefer it for whatever reason, and the third one just doesn't have any real use. Coming up though, we have 6 Hyperjumps in Castle Machinery, all done the same way by wedging yourself between 2 hot pipes. As far as I know, no use has been found for 5 of the 6, unless you consider skipping that elevator a use. The one we do have use for is used in time trials to get to the green gem area and subsequently the portal. Of course, you can copy the inputs display to replicate some of these Hyperjumps, however, note that there are multiple spots for some Hyperjumps and they can be kind of finicky. That Hyperjump was the one we do in time trials. This one, I guess, is a funny backup if you miss boxes. I think Buggle actually did that one first. And this might be the most useless Hyperjump in the entire game. Our naming conventions for Stormy is just first Hyperjump and second Hyperjump because those are the only Hyperjumps we use. Everything else in between, such as this one, is just utter nonsense.
Did I just get a hyper jump?
I think Batake might have found this one in 2023 or 2024, but I couldn't find the original clip, so I can't be sure. But as you can see, anytime there's spikes in Stormy or Slippery, you can probably get a stupid Hyperjump. This one was found by Austin, I believe, in 2022. It saves 3 seconds over what we now call old second Hyperjump. This will be the last Hyperjump shown in Crash 1. There are also a few in Crash 3. Never has there been a Hyperjump found in Crash 2. And I personally theorize that it's because you typically need the Death Tornado spin to get a Hyperjump in Crash 3. Crash's base movement speed and jumps are different in Crash 2 and 3 compared to Crash 1, so it's not unreasonable to assume that. It's really hard to determine what triggers a Hyperjump in this game though. Most of the time it just seems to be bonking your head into random bullshit and getting something out of it. Most of the Hyperjumps in this game are going to come from the Arabian levels. Much like the Spear Hyperjumps, it's just doing the same thing but in a different area of the map. These Arabian Hyperjumps are actually stupidly easy when you're just glitch highing into them, but you're just going to get stuck under the carpet thing the whole time. The one time that didn't happen was right here, and it's also the one time the Death Tornado spin has not been used for a Hyperjump in this game. I tried to replicate that original clip, as in without using the spin, but to no real avail. The best I got was getting pushed out of bounds or getting pushed to the other side of the carpet thing and just bouncing on it. And after the last and only one in Flaming Passion, that'll be the showcase. By my count, 46 Hyperjumps. I'll be sure to add to the description if any more are found. Thank you for watching.